In this video, I'm gonna give you a detailed look on the route of our 9,500 kilometer road trip through Scandinavia. Let's go! Hi and welcome to Behind the North, the show where I give you insights on our Norway road trip and behind the scenes of the show Nothing But North. And on our way down from the North Cape, I posted a question field on Instagram and asked what you are interested about on this road trip. If you don't follow me on Instagram, do that now at Silasjp. And the most frequent questions were, how much did the road trip cost? How many kilometers we did? I already mentioned it, 9,500 kilometers. And then people want to know about our camper, which is quite interesting because we didn't use the camper, we used a ordinary car, and I will cover that in another video. So keep subscribing to this YouTube channel to don't miss any more videos. And then one thing people also were interested about was a detailed look on the route. And so before the road trip started, I created an Excel sheet with the places we want to visit, with a plan when we would be where. And it is this, so we went from version 1 to version 2 to version 3. But I don't think you're interested in a Excel sheet. And last week I recreated a Norway road trip here on a printed out map, which you can kind of like see behind me. But because I can't send every one of you a printed out version of this, I yesterday created a Google Maps, My Maps, however you call it. It is a map with our Norway road trip, with the places we visited and also with the detailed route. And you can look here at the card legend or description on the different parts of the route, which is also very nice. And this part covers the route, this part covers the sites we visited, and this part covers the camping spots where we stayed at night. But I'm gonna minimize it because I will explain you everything in this video. So I will split this video in two parts because the road trip was just so long that it would just explode the length of one video. So there will be two parts, so don't forget to subscribe again. And you will also find our route link to this map in the video description, which you should also check out. So we started on our first day here in southern Germany in the Black Forest, and then we drove up to the island of Fehmarn. And why we did this? We did this not just to sleep here in the harbor of Fehmarn, right here, which was a very nice camping spot for the first day, but that we were right next to the ferry, or kind of like next to the ferry. It was a 10-minute drive on the next day early in the morning to get the ferry over the Baltic Sea to the town of Rødbyhavn in Denmark. So on that day we continued our drive up to Copenhagen, drove through Copenhagen over the Øresund Bridge to Malmö. Then we passed Malmö and then drove further here to the Norwegian border, which we reached somewhere between 2 and 3 p.m. And then we successfully crossed the border and then continued our journey further north. And then we took a ferry from Moss to Horten. And then again we went south, where we slept the night on a camping spot near Kragerø. Here I have marked it. And this continued our second day, so we crossed Denmark and Sweden on that day and then made it successfully to Norway. So the next day we drove down to Kristiansand along the Norwegian south coast And if you zoom out a little bit, you might ask the question why we just didn't drive here through Hamburg, through Denmark, up to Hirtshals, and then took the ferry from Hirtshals to Kristiansand. Well, we initially planned doing it, and it was the plan until 2 weeks before the road trip. But to find out what happened there, you need to check out the episode 3 of Nothing But North. At the time this video goes online, it's not published yet, but again, keep subscribing to this channel and then you will get notified, hopefully, if you activate the bell, when this episode of the show Nothing But North comes out. So we passed Kristiansand and then continued our drive through Stavanger, which is a more popular town in Norway, but we passed it and drove under the ocean through a 19-kilometer underwater tunnel, which was also sick, and then arrived in the late afternoon at the Preikestolen base camp, which is a parking spot. We parked the car there and then we hiked 4 kilometers to Preikestolen up in the rain. And when we were there, it was still raining, but we decided to cook Maultaschen there as we planned it. And as we started cooking, the rain stopped, and yeah, we had a beautiful sunset at Preikestolen. We had a rainbow at Preikestolen. It was just insane. And then we got back to the Preikestolen base camp at night, but we were not allowed to stay there at night, so we left with the car and drove a few kilometers down to this spot for caravans. It's a spot where you can also go to toilet and refuel water at a water station, which was also very convenient. And the next day we drove up further north. So we drove through the mountains and many tunnels, and on our way to Odda we had a stop here at Latefossen, which is a very nice waterfall. So we stopped, took a few photos, and then continued our drive to Odda, which was the goal for this day. But we arrived there already at 2 p.m. so we said, okay, we can't stay the whole day here at the town of Odda. It's not that interesting. So what can we do? So we got back in the car and drove through a very long tunnel under the Folgefonna glacier to the other side of the mountain. And here we checked out the Forebergfossen, which is another great waterfall. And we got a few shots of this waterfall. And then we got back to Odda in the evening, and here we slept the night on this caravan ground. We are the only car, all the other cars were caravans, but who cares? It was a very nice spot here directly at the water, and it also allowed us to have a very great sight. So it also had some showers here, which was also very nice after a few days without a shower. We tried to hit a camping ground every second day, and for most of the road trip we got it. So it was possible to shower every second day, but sometimes this was also not the case, but we gave our best. Then, why we went to Odda. The town of Odda is not that interesting, as I already mentioned, but the next morning we drove half an hour to Tüsedal and then drove up the mountain to the upper parking lot of Trolltunga. Here at the parking spot you have to reserve, so it was also the most expensive parking spot we ever parked. It was almost 60 euros. Quite expensive, but totally worth it. So we parked here with the car and then we hiked all the way through the mountains to Trolltunga. And Trolltunga is usually a hike that takes you about 10 hours, and somehow we managed to do it in 5 or 6 hours. So we are already on 12 a.m. back at the parking spot, which was also very nice. And since it was raining, we said, okay, let's continue driving, as we always did on this road trip. So we got back in the valley and we really got some nice kilometers on that day, many kilometers, up to scroll out a little bit. So here, it's insane how many kilometers we did on the day actually, to Sondal. So here we spent the night on another camping ground, also had the opportunity to shower, and also had a shelter which allowed us to cook in the dry without getting wet, which was also very nice. So the next day we started off in the morning driving through the mountains and checked on the way to our site of the day this glacier, which was pretty insane. It looked really cool, so we were driving along this road and hey, there's a glacier. And that's what I love about Norway, because there are so many great sights you can just see from your car without actually getting out of your car. And this makes driving through Norway one of the most insane places to drive a car. So I absolutely love it. And even though people say, how in this world can you drive 9,500 kilometers in 20 days and consider it a vacation, driving through Norway is really calming down. You only are allowed to drive 80 kilometers per hour, not like we do here in Germany on the Autobahn, but it really chills you down, and you have always a great sight in front of you. So we then continued our drive after checking out the glacier through the mountains, and then from another mountain we had a great view here on the Indic Fjord. So we stopped here at a viewpoint and checked out the fjord, and then we continued driving down to the fjord, along the fjord to Lovatnet, which is a little village. And here we drove into the valley where the nice lake of Lovatnet is located. And I saw this place on Instagram, and it's really looking insane. It has a very special toned blue water, and the reason for this is because it is surrounded by glaciers, and the glacier water is flowing down into the valley and into Lovatnet. So I saw this pretty insane picture of people jumping into the water here from kind of like a base where usually boats can dock, and we tracked it down. We parked the car here, then walked all the way there, had lunch, and jumped into the water, which was very refreshing. I expected it actually to be colder, but yeah, it was pretty nice. And then we walked back to the car after we checked out Lovatnet and continued driving to Stryn, which is a small town, and it is famous for the Stryn River. And I think it's only famous for the river since drones are invented, because you really have to get up to have a look on this truly insane river. As you can see, it flows like this, which is also very nice. And we checked it out as we continued driving up further north. So we got back in the mountains, and then we had here a very awesome looking mountain road. I also got a shot of this road, and then drove further through the mountains all the way to Lovatnet, which is a nice mountain lake. And as you can see here, there's a very nice transition between the lighter blue water and the darker blue water. And I also got a shot of this, and even though it was a very cold place, it was a little bit windy, we decided to settle down here, and it was honestly one of the most insane camping spots we had on this road trip. So we spent the night here and continued our drive on the next day. Let's load here to the Fjord, which is one of the most famous fjords in Norway, and we first checked it out here at this viewpoint, which was really nice, but not that nice as the other viewpoint, which we found while driving further. Here, this mountain road here, that's the better viewpoint on the Geiranger Fjord in my opinion, because here we have the view on the little village down there. It's not that nice, but from here you can really look here on this 90-degree turn of the fjord, and it just looks insane with almost 90-degree vertical walls of rocks down into the deep fjord. It's really an insane view, and I absolutely loved it. So we continued driving because this was not the main attraction of that day. So we took a ferry and then drove further through the mountains to the famous road of Trollsdegen. We parked the car here at the visitor center and then walked to the viewpoint. From the viewpoint you have a very cool look on the road, which is really insane. And then we also hiked a little bit here and then returned to the car, drove down the Trollsdegen road. Unfortunately, the Google My Maps tool didn't allow me to match the exact route we took that day. I tried my best, but it didn't work. So in reality, we drove down the Trollsdegen road and then this way here. But I don't know what Google Maps is doing. It is how it is. Anyways, we drove that evening to Ålesund, which is another more famous town in Norway. It's not a very big town, but a very nice town. It's giving you kind of like Venice vibes with the canals or the ocean going right into the town. And we spent the night here at a caravan camping ground. We were the only car that night. All the other cars were caravans, but again, who cares? We had a shower there and a toilet there, which was quite nice and very convenient on a road trip like this. And one great thing about this spot was that it is directly located in the town of Ålesund, and the next morning we planned to check out the entire town, but because it was raining we just had a short walk through the town, and I wanted to walk up to the Axla viewpoint, which is also the spot where pretty much all the pictures you see on the internet of Ålesund are taken from. It gives you a very nice view on the city. Even though it was raining, it was pretty nice. And then we continued our drive further north to the other big attraction we had on that day, which was the Atlantic Road. So we drove up to Molde. You take a longer ferry here, and then we are here at the Atlantic Road. The Atlantic Road is a built site, so they built all those bridges between the small little rocks and islands, and it's actually the location where the latest James Bond film was shot. So the time we were up there, the latest James Bond film wasn't released yet, so I didn't even knew that they shot the film there, and by incident I almost got the same shot like they did in the James Bond film. So I saw it later in the trailer and said, hey, we almost did the same shot with our car, which was also really nice. And we drove back and forward the Atlantic Road a few times, and then in the afternoon we continued our drive to the far north. So we stopped in Trondheim to get groceries and then continued driving in the evening. It was raining pretty heavy, so we were looking for a place with a shelter for that night, and we found it. Luckily here next to the highway there was a little camping spot, or no, it wasn't a camping spot, it was a parking spot, but it had a little hut which also allowed us to have our dinner in the dry. So yeah, we were totally happy about that. Spent the night here, and the next day was a full driving day. So we had nothing but driving on that day, except the fact that we crossed the Arctic Circle that day near the town of Mo i Rana. So here is the Polarsirkelen, how they call it in Norwegian. And here they also have the Arctic Circle Center. And we stopped here, checked it out, and then we continued our drive further north. That night we made it all the way up to Fauske, and we spent the night here on a camping spot. The next day we drove from Fauske to Bodø, where we took the ferry over to the beautiful Lofoten Island. So this marks the end of a Norway road trip route explanation video, and I will continue in part 2, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also do it to don't miss the upcoming series Nothing But North. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can see you in the next one. Bye!